Hello! This video is going to demonstrate how you can take landscape information that you've acquired in IFTDSS, or the Interagency Fuel Treatment Decision Support System, and you can move that into FlamMap6. And it's going to show how you can take fire behavior output that you've produced in IFTDSS, and you can move that into ArcPro. So to begin, I'm just going to go quickly through the process of developing a landscape in IFTDSS. So let's say I'm working in an area near Moscow, Idaho. And I can select the landscape tool and click Create New and draw a box. Simple as that. Puts a buffer around it for one of the additional applications of burn probability. And I can make sure that I select the appropriate land fire product that I'd like. So if I'm trying to do something for as current modeling, I'd use the most current data, of course. But if I was trying to model, let's say, a previous fire, I would want to make sure that I acquired data that was from before that fire. So choose the data that you'd like to use. And you can choose the 40 fire behavior field models or the 13th. And you name your project something that's you're going to be remembering in the future. And you can save it either to a folder that you establish or just to your general your playground or your workspace. So once you've created that landscape, it will go here to your workspace folder, and here's what it'll look like with a little tree icon. And when you click on that, you have some options here. You can request a report, which is a great way to see a summary of your landscape, or you can select the download option. Now let's say your objective here was that you downloaded this information and you want to run some general fire behavior. So you can do that. Of course, acquiring data from IFTDSS is pretty convenient, running in FlamMap, but the real power here is that you can use this landscape to make do some manipulations to your land fire layers. And IFTDSS is a very convenient way to make those adjustments, so you can change values inside specific polygons, so you can demonstrate or change the field characteristics to show areas where treatment has occurred. So we're not going to go through that in this video, but let's say we made those changes to this landscape file, and we'd like to run that in FlamMap to see what the landscape scale fire behavior changes were. And so instead of just downloading the data directly from the land fire data distribution site, we've done some manipulations to it, and we want to be able to model fire with that new data set. So here this new data set is, and we have selected download, and it'll save as a zip file. And so that zip file, you can save that to your project folder. I try always to avoid spaces in my path names, always good practice. And what you'll end up with are these, actually just these three files. This one's been created as we've been working on it. So this .tiff one, of course, is the one that you'll be working with. And then when you go into the FlamMap area, you will be prompted for your landscape file. Double click on that, and then you'll navigate to this TIFF file. Open that, and there it is. So now you can do your either landscape scale fire behavior across the site, or you can run some fire across the site using the ignition tools. You can do FlamMap or Farsight runs, so now you can do all kinds of things with this information. All right, so let's look now at taking some fire behavior results from IFTDSS and moving that into Arc, maybe for some additional analysis or for some different display options. So just to quickly demonstrate how this is generated, we got this model output. So let's go to our cycle, and we'll generate some modeled fire behavior. And here are the fire behavior runs that we've created thus far. And I'm going to be modeling landscape fire behavior. Choose the landscape I want to use. And then I've got lots of options for my input variables here, so we'll just choose a couple. Keep most of this stuff the same. And we'll just keep it pretty simple. And we'll call this Moscow Mountain Dry. And 20 miles per hour. And we can see in Playground that this run that we've just had is now running. Take a little bit to finish that. All right, so now it's done. And in my workspace, my model output is now there. I can select this and I can click Request a Report, which is going to produce this report option here, which shows some nice visuals of the fire behavior across my landscape in table format, which is nice to look at. It also shows the fuel reports at the same time. But since I'm interested in doing some additional comparisons and putting some of these images a little bit closer together in Arc, I am going to download this information. So again, downloading it downloads as a zip file. All right, now that that's downloaded, I am going to just take that output and move it over into my other folder. All right, now to ArcPro. So in ArcPro, I have these folder connections. So this is an existing project that I've already set up, and I've got this option in my catalog pane for folders, and I've already connected to my Moscow Mountain folder. In this case, I've added something new to it since I've opened this last, so I'm going to select Refresh. And as I expand the IFTDSS, now I've got these two TIFF files. So this is the original landscape file that I've added. And then here's my fire behavior output. And as I expand this option, I can see that I have all my different fire behavior output from IFTDSS. And I can slide this over. Let's say I'm interested in flame length. Let's start there. And my flame lengths are most powerful for me when they are in classifications. So I'm going to reclassify my layer here, and I'm going to save it as a raster so that I have this as a separate layer. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go to the Tools option, search for the Reclassify tool. I'm going to go through the Reclassify Spatial Analyst. And my input raster will be my flame length, and I'm going to select Classify, and I want, now some directions that I'm using here are from the IFTDSS help page. There's a lot of resources on the IFTDSS help page. So from here, if you search help, then you can search for all kinds of different things. I searched for downloading files, and this was one of the options that it had for helping. So these are directions that are created in ArcMap, but I can pretty easily convert them to ArcPro. So what I'm looking for here are the number of classes that I'm going to be using, which it looks like there's 7. And my output raster I'm going to call something meaningful, which would be, we'll call it FL for flame length, and we'll do dry and 20 miles per hour. And run. All right, and now I can go through and change these values. I could apply a color ramp. Let's try that out. Right-clicking here and selecting Symbology. And we'll change to your more expected yellow to orange color ramp. Awesome. All right, so when I go back to my catalog pane, I'm going to refresh this. And this is my geodatabase that's associated with my project. And as I expand this out, notice that I've got now a new raster that's right here with my flame length. And so I can do some good visualization now. Let's say I have multiple different flame length files that I would like to compare based on different weather conditions or maybe different fuel treatment conditions. And so this is the way that I would do that. Then I would set up different layout pages. So there's lots of different options you can do once you get this into your system. So I'm not going to go through each of these different layers that you'll get from IFTDSS, but we'll just talk about them for just a second here. So each of these might have a different way to classify a crown fire activity. It's broken down into 4 different classes. You can look at those, the way that that's classified either in the IFTDSS help information or the FlamMap help information. You can search for something like crown fire activity. The output for both IFTDSS and FlamMap in this case are the same. So if it's crown fire activity, so then in this case you've got 4 classes, so you'd classify that just to 4 different values. Some of these options might be still with stretched, so rate of spread, for example, you wouldn't classify, you would just leave it as stretched and you would apply the different colors to it. Let's go ahead and take a look at rate of spread, since that might be a little bit different. Alright, so for rate of spread, we will right-click on it and we'll select Data and Export Raster. And I'm going to navigate to my geodatabase in my project. And we're going to name this rate of spread dry 20 mile per hour. And then select export. All right, so let's check our catalog pane. And we will refresh. And now, well, it's already added to the map, but there's my my rate of spread raster. And again, I would change my symbology here so that it was something that made sense visually. And in this case, I could use a color banded stretch. Red. So higher rates of spread. All right, so you can do all kinds of things with reclassifying these major groups so that you can display them and create some pretty neat maps comparing fire behavior using different weather conditions or different fuel treatment conditions. All right, have fun.